I'm gonna have to be faster than that. They're here.
Run!
In a not-so-distant tomorrow, the Earth begins to fracture with violent sinkholes erupting across continents. Each one detonates with fury, plunging the world into chaos. From the depths of these craters, towering beasts, known as ravagers, emerge. The ravagers freeze solid above 8,000 feet. As a result, the remnants of humanity retreat to the mountains. 3 years pass. A young man named Hunter lives with a tight-knit group in an isolated haven. Curiosity gets the better of him one day, and he steps beyond the protective altitude limit, desperate to see what remains of the world below. He barely makes it a few steps when a ravager lunges from the trees. The beast almost catches him, but he scrambles past the safe zone just in time. Shaken, he returns to the alpine shelter known as Lost Gulch, home to fewer than 200 survivors. His father, Will, lectures him fiercely, not just because of the monsters, but because of Hunter's fragile lungs. Hunter confesses he was hoping to find other survivors. Will, still mourning his wife, reminds him he can't bear to lose his son too. Later, Will vents to Katie, a skilled hunter. She sympathizes, noting Hunter's isolation as the only child among them. But Will believes it's more than loneliness. Hunter longs to reach the last place he saw his mother alive. Elsewhere, a scientist named Nina tests specialized bullets on Ravager hide. Still no success, they remain indestructible. That night, the echo of gunshots reminds Will of the expedition that took his wife's life. An expedition led by Nina. When Hunter wakes, coughing violently, Will rushes to replace the filter on his oxygen machine. It's the last one they have. As Hunter drifts back to sleep, Will pores over maps, considering a dangerous supply run. For Hunter's birthday, Will makes him a rare treat, the last box of boxed macaroni. During dinner, Hunter asks why they never use the radio anymore. Will replies they conserve power, relying instead on flag signals. Hunter finds it depressing. Conversations matter. That night, his coughing worsens. With no filters left, Will resorts to an emergency injection. Afterward, he visits Nina, telling her he plans to trek to Boulder in search of new filters. He claims to know a safe path. Nina is skeptical. She knows the terrain too well. Her old research lab is in Boulder, and it's a graveyard of failed attempts. Will asks her to come. She has knowledge, experience, but she reminds him that she survived the last trip. His wife didn't. Determined, Will mentions a mining tunnel that cuts through the mountains. After Will leaves, Nina tinkers with a specialized compass, haunted by guilt and memories. Meanwhile, Will entrusts a neighbor with Hunter's care, then arms himself from the local cache. Katie arrives, insisting she join him. Will objects, but she refuses to be left behind. Nina reluctantly agrees to, mocking Katie's inexperience. Will says goodbye to Hunter. The boy reminds him that his mother made that same promise, to return. The trio departs. Tension brews quickly. Nina and Katie clash, prompting Will to demand civility. Nina explains her device can detect ravagers using their electromagnetic pulses, up to half a mile away. They reach the Elba Fire Road, and the altitude barrier. No creatures in range. They descend. They soon come across abandoned trucks. Inside, they find flares, ammo, and a grenade launcher Katie handles confidently. Nina collects a sample from a discarded Ravager scale. Katie grows impatient. A fight erupts. Nina accuses Katie of pursuing Will. Katie slams her against a truck, blaming her for her best friend's death. Will's wife. Fists fly until Will breaks it up. They continue their journey. In a clearing, they encounter a herd of horses, untouched. Clearly, Ravagers only target humans. They reach the Alta Vista ski area. Their plan is to use the chairlift to cross to the mine. Nina's compass blares. Something massive approaches. Will races to the control tower to activate the generator. Katie and Nina prepare to defend. A Ravager charges. Katie fires grenades. The explosions slow it, but don't harm it. The lift powers on. Nina boards a chair. Will joins her. They fire as the creature closes in. Katie climbs the tower to jump on. The Ravager leaps onto the cables, rocking the lift. Katie leaps, misses, and Will grabs her midair. Then, disaster. The monster shakes the lift again. All three fall. They scramble to their feet and sprint. Just as the Ravager lunges, They cross into the safe altitude. They decide to spend the night at the resort. Over drinks, Nina reflects. Ravagers wiped out 95% of humanity without eating or resting. Predators hunt to survive. These things kill for sport. And only humans. She suspects they were designed, sent here to wipe us out. Later, while the women sleep, Will recalls his wife's faith in Nina. Faith that she'd find a way to destroy the Ravagers. The next day, they reach Will's old mining site. He explains both ends are high enough to be safe, mostly, but some sections dip below 8,000 feet. Worse, the tunnels aren't sealed, and the compass won't work underground. Still, there's no turning back. With helmets lit, they descend into the dark. For hours they walk in eerie silence, until a cave-in blocks the main tunnel. Will decides they'll detour through level 7, a stretch dangerously below the safety line. They hesitate, then descend. The weight of risk presses down. They enter the lower passage, moving fast, hoping to get through before anything finds them. A distant clatter echoes through the tunnel. Instinctively, they switch off their helmet lights, but it's already too late. A Reaper stands at the far end, eyes aglow, charging toward them. They break into a sprint. Spotting a narrow breach in the stone wall, they duck inside. Will fires at the rock, blasting open enough space for the trio to squeeze through. The Reaper slithers its bioluminescent tail into the gap. Will lights and tosses a flare. It distracts the monster just long enough to spot an opening in the far wall. They claw at the debris, just enough for one to wriggle through. After a short crawl through the dark, Katie emerges into another shaft, only to face another Reaper. It strikes before she can react, but the creature pulls Katie into the shadows. Nina spots a rusted ladder bolted to the tunnel wall. They scramble upward as heavy claws crash behind them. With no time to mourn, Will and Nina press on. Along the way, they pause briefly to pet a lone mountain goat, a rare sign of life. Night falls. They find an abandoned shack and break inside. As they eat, he asks what Nina hopes to find at her old lab. She explains there's a chance she can formulate a compound to make bullets penetrate the Reaper's armored scales. She believes the creature's hides generate electrical charges, and a reactive payload might trigger a fatal overload. The next morning, they siphon fuel from the house's garage truck. They race downhill, trying to outrun the elevation limit through a wildlife-overrun town. They finally reach the hospital. They head to the top floor, finding the filters they need. But the moment they grab them, a Reaper tears through a wall, claws reaching. They dash through the corridors, tripping over fallen beds and debris. Furniture blocks their way as they dodge the creature's deadly swipes. Suddenly, Will is yanked backward. The Reaper's tail has wrapped around him. Nina snatches a fire axe and hacks at the tail until it releases him. Without hesitating, she twists open a gas line. The corridor fills with vapor. Will gets an idea. He waits as the Reaper charges, then fires into a rack of oxygen tanks. The resulting explosion sends the monster flying through a shattered window. Will wants to return home, but Nina pleads. They're close. If she can finish her work, it could change everything. They take the truck and head to her old lab. Inside the lab, Nina begins mixing chemicals. Will stands guard and notices a family photo tucked beneath a dusty beaker. It shows Nina with a husband and young boy. Quietly, she admits she lost them the day the world changed. She was working when her son played his final soccer game, alone. She breaks down, confessing the guilt she carries, not only for her family, but for Will's wife. Eventually, Nina tests her new bullet, but it fizzles out. No effect. She tells Will to return to his son, but she stays behind, determined to find the answer or die trying. Will drives away while Nina continues experimenting, unaware that her compass begins pulsing. She hears something moving, but also stumbles upon a chemical combination she hasn't tested yet. Meanwhile, Will's truck hits a rock, flips, and crashes into a ditch. Dazed, he comes to as a Reaper closes in. He kicks out the shattered window and runs, lungs burning. Climbing the incline, he sees the safety line, only to find another Reaper waiting. Will fires, but his bullets do nothing. Just as he braces for the end, Nina appears and fires. Her bullet explodes on impact, releasing a cloud of static and fire. The Reaper spasms and collapses. Her formula works. She fires again, striking the second Reaper. Both fall, destroyed. She approaches a carcass and peels back the flesh, revealing gears and synthetic wiring underneath. "They're machines," she says. "Someone sent them." When Will asks who, she answers only, "Not from Earth." Back at the mountain refuge, Will reunites with Hunter. Nina raises a pirate flag, a signal of victory. Survivors gather to manufacture the new ammunition. Will finally powers up the radio to share their message with the world. Nina begins dissecting the mechanical remains, determined to understand them fully. Now armed, the survivors launch into the forests, hunting the Reapers and reclaiming lost ground. Elevation is a tense atmospheric thriller that cleverly blends elements of sci-fi and survival horror. Set in a remote wilderness under mysterious quarantine, the film thrives on its claustrophobic tension and minimalist storytelling. It explores themes of isolation, sacrifice, and the fear of the unknown, all while keeping viewers guessing about the true nature of the threat.